Welcome to The Social Issue with me, Sam Marshall, brought to you by socialtv.co.za. In today's episode, we delve into the pressing issue of animal welfare in the fashion industry. Joining us is Bertha Motowane from PAWS, here to discuss their latest findings and the new Where It Kind directory that rates fashion brands on their animal welfare commitments. Bertha, thank you very much for joining us. Before we get into your report and the directory, maybe if you could just clue our audience in, what does PAWS do?
Okay. Thank you so much for having me. So my name is Bertha Motiani, and I'm the campaigns officer for farmed and companion animals for PAWS in South Africa. So PAWS is a global animal welfare organization for animals that are under direct human influence. We work with companion animals, farm animals, and wild animals. So what we do there is basically we have sustainable campaigns and projects to ensure that we can improve the lives of many animals that are in those three sectors or departments. So that's what PAWS does, and our vision is a world where humans can treat animals with respect, empathy, and understanding.
Recently, you did a YouGov poll that revealed a significant gap between consumer demand and brand practices regarding animal welfare. Can you explain some of the key findings of this poll and what they indicate about the current state of the fashion industry?
Thank you so much. Yes, so in April of 2024, PAWS commissioned a YouGov study or poll or survey across 12 different countries, South Africa being one of them, just to get the opinions of the consumer or fashion consumer in terms of what they are demanding, in terms of the fashion that they're getting in relation to animal welfare. So some of the findings was more than a quarter of the people that participated from 12 different countries actually at this point say they want to avoid animal products altogether in terms of their fashion. And this is not a surprise at all to us, because back in 2021, in the middle of COVID-19, we also commissioned a similar YouGov study, participating from many different countries, South Africa included, where people then were saying now they are more concerned and they would like their fashion to come from high animal welfare standard certifications. So this YouGov study done in April now also indicates that more than a quarter of the people that participated say they would avoid animal products in their fashion altogether. But the surprising thing is that the only 4% of the fashion brands that were rated in this directory have published clear goals to either phase out or reduce animal-derived materials where they are not able to trace the originality of the material in terms of the means of production. So back to the farmer. What was the farmer's practices in terms of the animals that were in production for this sweater that I'm wearing, for this jacket that I'm wearing? So we are seeing that, but the poll itself now also indicates that people are concerned about animal welfare. In fact, I think for South Africa in general, one of the findings from this YouGov study, we found that South Africans that participated, 68% of them are aware of animal cruelty in the fashion industry. And then they went on to also say they are concerned about the production of some of the animal-derived materials. They mentioned 80% are concerned for the production of the feathers that would be either ostrich feathers or peacock feathers or anyhow. But they're also concerned about exotic leather, which we know that South Africa is also a huge producer of crocodile and ostrich leather. They're also further concerned about general domesticated leather and the conditions that it came from.
And you know what? I love what you're saying, because what this poll also does, it is part of the education drive, because you talked about a fair amount of brands are now looking at that source. Where does it come from? But very quickly, 200 fashion brands. Are these the kind of fashion brands we know, Bertha? Are these the everyday stuff?
Yes, so it's quite a mixture because it's a global ranking. But it's quite a mixture, but there are so many on the ranking, on the 200 list, brands that we in South Africa are know of. So brands like Adidas, Converse, Hugo Boss, Lacoste, Levi's, Mango, New Balance, Puma, Reebok, they're all there. So basically what this directory attempted to do was only look at what we as PAWS believe is the key areas of animal welfare when it comes to fashion supply chains. So we were looking at your goals for reducing live lamb cut wool. This is wool that's only coming from Australia because the farmers still practice a very cruel, outdated procedure where they cut off the skin of the lamb from as early as 9 days without any pain relief and any of that. So we are looking at your wool commitments. So where does your wool come from? So for example, if you're a South African brand and your wool is sourced 100% from South Africa, then you get a higher score. You get a greener, dark green color scored to your brand because you're at least sourcing from a country where this live lamb cutting or mulesing is illegal. We've also looked at fair usage in products. And the thing about fair with us as PAWS is that there is no such thing as ethical fair or good fair. All fair should be phased out in the fashion industry because fair is sourced from animals that are not even domestic animals, but they are put into cages and farms. Your chinchillas, your foxes, your raccoon dogs. This is taking place in China, but these products can end up in a wardrobe anywhere in the world, including in South Africa, because of the way that we are shopping these days, where I can just go online, make a purchase, and the thing gets delivered to me. We also looked at down from live plucked geese and ducks. So it's your commitment. And the fourth category was just your general reduction goals for all animal-derived materials, including some that are not so bad or notoriously bad, like normal leather, that's a byproduct of the meat industry. So just to look at that, because why we are calling for a reduction of animal-derived materials is all the negative impacts that factory farming has. From your climate crisis, from public health crisis, and all of that. So we brought all those together and say everybody that is responsible for us and what we are doing to our planet, what we are doing to our animals, and what we are essentially doing to our human health, we must all come together and take responsibility in our different areas. So this is how the Wear It Kind campaign for PAWS was born, just to target and help fashion brands transition away from using animal-derived materials that are not certified to robust. Yes.
And look, this is only 200 fashion brands. I mean, there are many others around the world, but it's a fairly good start. Does this directory, Bertha, work in the same way a normal directory works? Because it's called the Wear It Kind directory. So I would go there to find what?
Yeah, so this directory will be updated annually. So every year we'll undertake the similar processes that we undertook to talking to brands, to seeing what's available on their website, what they've made transparent as to where they source their materials, and we will keep updating it. But this is it's a database of all the fresh fashion brands that are available for consumers that are seeking ethical fashion, to find them and to locate them and to know who these people are. So for example, somebody that says, I've watched a documentary about live lamb cutting and I don't think that's fair and that's good what we're doing to the animals. You're able to go to the directory and then look for the icon with the little lamb, because that's the one for live lamb cutting or mulesing, and then you are able to say, oh, Adidas only sources wool that's certified or that is mulesing free or live lamb cutting free, because there is wool like that. Unfortunately, the issue that we are facing is that 70% of all merino wool is sourced in Australia, the one country where this cruel practice still takes place. The farmers are still doing it. So this directory really is just a place, a platform where a conscious consumer is able to go to and be able to identify all of the stores that they can get clothing from, and that can ensure that the clothing that they buy is cruelty-free.
And can I ask a very basic question? Because I understand the nature of the directory and what its intended purposes are, but it's still early days. Have you seen an adoption of the directory? Have you seen an increase in people visiting the directory? Have you had some correlation between the directory and sales? For example, let's use Adidas, for example, as an example. Have you seen the relationship yet develop, or is it still early days for somebody who is an ethical buyer to go to the directory and then connect to the brand, and then the brand is aware that this is somebody who first went to go and check to see whether they're an ethical brand? Are we seeing the numbers yet, or is it early days?
Yes, thanks for asking. What's happening is that we launched the directory on Monday, the 5th of August. So it's just 2 days out there. What we are doing now is doing obviously this media outreach to let people know that if you go to the 4PAWS website, you'll find the directory and it will direct you there. So we'll
Okay, so this is a brand new
as a
venture.
tool. Yes, so we'll continue to use it as a tool that's available for conscious consumers. And then I think once we update it in the second year, we'll be able to say, because these are brands that we are engaging with, this is part of our brand engagement drive. So we'll be able to say, Adidas and New Balance and all these people were able to also say that some of the sales, or there was an increase in sales in some items that were obviously verified to be animal free. So we will know that in about the second year. For now, we just want to promote it out there so that the conscious consumer is aware that such a directory is there.
And let me say congratulations. I think it's an amazing tool that you've built. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. And I think we are moving into the era of where we're going to find more ethical buyers. People are concerned about what brands are doing. And kudos to you and your team for doing it. I want to ask another question, just in terms of, you did mention that it was a global study, but I wanted to get back to just South Africa, because we are conducting this interview in South Africa. Can you talk to me more about just some of the specific concerns that were raised by the South African respondents, and how does that compare to what you saw globally?
Yeah. So in terms of South Africa, I think what was a big number was the 68% of South African respondents agreeing that they are aware that there's animal cruelty in the fashion industry. 68% is quite a large number, and it was actually higher than the global average, which was around the 40s. So that was for us interesting. But to go on also to go into the specific animal-derived textiles, and to say when it comes to the feathers that we are so proud of in the world stage, we are also concerned about the ostriches that are used in the production of those feathers. 80% were extremely concerned. So that was a high number. It shows that with the initiatives that we undertake with the Wait Kind campaign, we are getting to people, because we do fashion university outreaches. We try and get speaking opportunities where we can speak to people about the importance of our Wait Kind, because a lot of people believe that animal-derived textiles are just a byproduct of the meat industry, but that's not always the case. Because of the economic revenues that these materials are able to generate, we've actually found that some of them are either co-products with the meat, or sometimes they are the primary product and the meat becomes the byproduct. That is the case of ostrich meat, for example, in South Africa. Everywhere you go, studies show that in South Africa, ostriches are primarily bred for their skins and feathers, and the meat is just a byproduct. So for people who were not aware of those things, to understand that if there's an alternative, we encourage people to practice what we call our 3 R's principles. So you reduce, replace, and refine. So reduce the number of animal-derived products that you depend on, whether for food or for clothing. Number 2 is obviously refine, ask about the means of production, check the label, make sure that the producer knows where that material comes from and how it was produced and what the animal's condition was like. Then obviously replace is if the alternative is there. So we are also finding that if we can build a compassionate fashion movement in South Africa, which is an animal-free fashion movement, we are able to also find different ways of bringing some of these materials be accessible to South Africans, be accessible to our people. As I've said before, that at least in terms of our wool production, that's something that we're still very proud of, because South Africa has since phased out the long outdated procedure, which is harmful to the sheep that are in production. So some of those things to maybe engage in more conversations and what can I use instead of the exotic leather. And then we can look at recyclable vegan leather. Some of the leather products are made from old tires that are recycled into, and it's just as durable as the product that's made out of crocodile skin. But with the crocodile having left its entire life, lived its entire life in a concrete pen, that it outgrows the size and all of that. That's not how we should be treating our animals. So yeah, I think generally in South Africa, we were very pleased with the results that 68% of the people are aware. That means the work that we are doing through the Wait Kind campaign is getting to the people, and they're starting to understand that it's not always that the leather was just a nice byproduct. Sometimes it is, and we say there are certification standards that can trace that piece of leather or that piece of mohair, wool, whatever the case may be.
Yes.
And where they cannot trace it, that's where we are asking retailers and fashion brands to commit to always sourcing from the very certified ones.
And you know, Bertha, there's just so many questions I have, but we just don't have the time. And I would assume that what we're going to need is a lot more education and advocacy to get people to understand that. And I think sometimes a lot of these things are driven by consumers who insist that it has to be 100% leather, but it doesn't really understand the implication of that. And I take my hat off yet again for the work that you do. And I'm glad to see that South Africans are in their numbers understanding the impact. Just one last question. Transparency obviously is going to be critical in the fashion supply chain. So it's a two-pronged question. And we only have 40 seconds, so hopefully you can run through it. But how transparent were the brands when you engage them? Number one. And then this figure of 5 billion animals at risk. I mean, that is just an astronomical amount of animals if you think about it. So if you can talk to me about the transparency issue, and then just this fact that there are 5 billion animals as we speak at risk. And that for me surely says that immediate action needs to be taken.
Needs to be taken, yes. Fortunately, brands are not always transparent. Brands also want to protect their supply chains because sometimes they get the materials for a lesser price. Like I said, the biggest shock is that we did this directory only using 4% of the brands had published and made it public and made it transparent. The rest of the brands, we're still working with them. We're trying to have them to develop and improve their sustainability policies to include animal welfare, and then get them on other platforms, because we also partner with platforms like Good on You, which is a global ranking platform for animal welfare in fashion. So the transparency is in there, but we do find that when we become a critical friend to the fashion brand and we show them of the opportunities of being discovered by conscious consumers globally, or they are willing. So it's just it's a work in progress where we are guiding one by one a fashion brand to develop and improve its sustainability policy to include even the animal welfare element and how they can find the right materials. There are certification standards and boards that can direct people to producers that put animal welfare at the center of their production.